Here is Jeff, the host of the Gridiron.
Fourth and goal to go with the 2. 34 seconds left to go in the ball game. This is the play right now. Takes the snap. Targeted goes in. Targeted all alone. And the quarterback keeps. Wow, what a call. Nobody touched him.
All right. Welcome to the Gridiron, baby. If you can give this video a thumbs up and maybe share this video, that would be absolutely freaking phenomenal. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. If not, please go down below, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell icon. That way next time I go live, or if I put a video out, you'll be notified. And it's free of charge. What you got to lose? It's totally free of charge. But if you are subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you want to help support my channel out, description box below, very top link, takes you to my membership page. I got 3 different membership levels. Each one has their own little perks to them. So once again, if you want to help support my channel out, it would mean so much to me. And I thank you in advance once again. Thank you. And then finally, just underneath that, in the description box once again, there's another link takes you to my Facebook group. It's called the New York Giants, The Gridiron. It's my Facebook group. We have over 9,800 members in the group. It is doing simply marvelous, might I add. Basically, if I'm alive and breathing, and if I got internet access, I'm putting stuff in this group going here 365. It's called the New York Giants, The Gridiron. It's my Facebook group. Please join it. You will not be dissatisfied. I promise. All right. Well, we're finally, what do we got? 25 minutes and ding, we're going to hit the month of July. So then we're about, to be the first. And so then the 15th is when the rookies have to show up for training camp. And of course, a week later, right, that's when the veterans have to show up. And it's on, guys, it's on. So basically, we're about the halfway point of like Never Land, where kind of like everybody left and nobody's showing up yet. What's going on? And, there's like nothing going on. I keep saying this all the time. Thankfully, there's all these wonderful reporters out there, the beat reporters, whatever you want to call them, right? That write articles about all different kind of topics and subjects and everything like that, so it gives somebody like a moron like me something to talk about, right? So halfway, we got like 2 more weeks, right? And then the rookies show up. Okay, so at least that'll give us a little taste of something. Then a week later, the vets, and it's on. So got 2 more weeks being in Never Land. But then I did see this one here. This is kind of interesting. I was kind of obviously reading and everything, and this one popped up a couple times about Daniel Jones. I mean, his agent and all. Daniel Jones isn't the one who wrote up the contract. His agent. I mean, you do what you got to do, right, to get the big bucks, right? And if it took 40-something pages to be typed up, explaining why he needs to get paid a certain amount of money, I guess that's what you got to do. It's 40 pages for $40 million a year, I guess. So I guess now of course the Giants did not have to sign it, right? But it is what it is. I mean, they had a successful 2022 season. There was a lot of reasons why they had a successful 2022 season. They did not have the greatest, weaponry in the world. They relied a lot on, they won a lot of close games. They did not have a super duper, unbelievable tough schedule. As I would say, they had a lot of close games. They found ways to win it. Right, the Jaguar game, guy got tackled at like the 1 inch line as time ran out. Right, managed to back down, and I believe it was 2 of Aaron Rodgers' passes in his last drive. Right, 4th down and goal, dropping back, it's knocked Giants win! The shovel pass to Saquon as he got to back his way into the end zone, lands in the ground, throws the ball up into the stands. People, Giant fans are freaking out. We're 1-0. We actually won a game. We're actually 1-0 for the first time in 300 years. Just a lot of close games. We found ways to win. That year, we beat the Eagles. So whatever they were, the Commanders, the WFTs, the WTFs, the Redskins, whatever they called them, 29. We beat them. They were not good. They said, so we found ways to win some football games, without a phenomenal, offense. We relied a lot on Saquon, right? And the running of Daniel Jones too, which, you got Saquon behind you and you can run the ball, that opens stuff up, but of course, after that, everything kind of went downhill. I mean, you figure it's like, well, we're 9-7-1, if we can maybe add some weaponry or whatever, and, get, if we could stay healthy, which we couldn't in 2023, maybe we can do about the same, right? But ever since we've been going obviously downhill since then, but it's like, well, Dable came in, first-year head coach. Daniel Jones is our quarterback. With we didn't have a great offensive line. We didn't have great weapons. Somehow we were 9-7-1. So it's like, $40 million a year. I mean, could have been worse. Could have been better. Could have been worse. Everybody who's against Daniel Jones obviously thought $40 million. Of course, hindsight's always 20/20, right? But the one thing is that for the most part, we owe Daniel Jones that is on the books for about $22 million this season, right? So a lot of we got pretty much almost out of the contract. Pretty much almost after it was a 4-year contract. And almost after 2 years, we were totally out of it. And after this season, right? So you got to give Shane some credit there. We could be like the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. He's getting paid 50-50. Well, of course, he's not actually getting per se 50-51 because there's 312 void years on the end of his contract. The Eagles owe him, I think, in 2028, like almost $100 million, right? But nobody's talking about that because they're winning Super Bowls now. For the Eagles, if things, anything can happen, right? The Eagles stayed, good for them. And you can pound your chest a little bit and say, that's right, well, the NFC East, baby, ain't no NFC least anymore. Right? I just can't stand the Eagles, but say good for them. But people start getting injured. Saquon, what Saquon do when he was with the Giants a lot? Get injured. That was the 1 year, second game of the season. I think he had I can't remember. I think he had 34 yards rushing. He basically almost got shut out against the Steelers and against the Bears. He injures himself out the whole season. Well, if all their key players got injured, they're screwed. They ain't going to the Super Bowl, right? So. But, it is what it is. But it always takes two to tango, right? So, they come up with this crazy contract, right? Basically, the last minute, the last seconds, whatever, they struck a deal. So, but Daniel Jones's agent went to absurd lengths to get contract from Giants. It took a 42-page manifesto on quarterbacks to get deal done at the last second. And, well, it worked. They didn't have to sign it. There are many New York Giant fans who still believe the 4-year, $160 million contract team gave Daniel Jones for the 2023 season was absurd. Of course. Now, one of the agents who represented Jones in those negotiations admitted to, I guess, Athletes First. I guess that's the name of their company, I guess. Went to absurd lengths to get that deal done for the former Giants quarterback. A.J. Stevens of Athletes First said on the NFL Spotlight with Ari Meirov, don't know, podcast that the Jones could be the most memorable contract he has ever been involved in. Stevens told Ari he built a 42-page manifesto, I think the Giants called it, and it gave it a history of the quarterback position since 2010-ish, and eventually a proposal. So you had to read through 41 pages to actually see our first proposal to the Giants. I had to read 41 pages. Wow. Stevens knows what that looked like. It was absurd at the time, he said. Looking back, it's still absurd. It inevitably got us to the point where we did a buzzer beater deal where there were seconds left before the deadline. Wow. That deal, of course, did not work out well for the Giants. Worked out well for Daniel Jones, but yeah, did not work out well for the Giants. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. You know, we're going to look back at forever. You know, being Giant fans, but whatever, right? Is that what went wrong? What happened? There's a trillion things. Some things you can maybe point your fingers to. Some things you can kind of, well, did this happen? Did that? A lot of it we couldn't protect them. I mean, the guy was just kind of like, part of the first game of the 2023 season when he get hit 350 times. I mean, it was so bad, right? I don't remember who it was, but it was so bad that the Cowboy guy, it was one guy, I think their defensive line was on the sideline and were making fun. Well, the defensive linemen were sitting down. We had the camera had their backs to the defensive lineman, and the camera was at the guy. Say with me, and he's staring at the defense. You get a sack, and you get a sack, and you get a sack, and he's making fun. It was a joke, absolute joke. We couldn't protect them to save our lives. Now, of course, that was also 5 minutes into the season where we basically lost our offense, our best lineman for the whole year. Pretty much, because of a pulled hamstring, and it was all downhill after that. It was absolutely unbelievable. But and then he got annihilated against the Dolphins, and then he finally comes back and against the Raiders, and he gets injured and he's out for the rest of the season. Does everything he can to come back as fast as he can. He makes it back in time for the next season, but I mean, one of the things that was that it was the one game where we had the flea flicker, and I think it was against the Panthers, maybe it was, and Daniel Jones drops back, and you can look at and Rich Eisen was talking. It was the international game, right? And Rich Eisen, was broadcasting. He was talking about it, and at the top of the screen, you can see Dable, and he calls up this play, winds up being a perfectly called play, right? He's got two guys open, two guys. Daniel Jones is in the pocket. He has some protection, but you can also see where it was breaking down, and one guy started coming at him. And Daniel Jones, two guys open. It's like the perfect play, right? And he just stands there, and he gets hit. Why? History's mysteries. Never going to know, right? Never going to know. Why did you just stand there when you had to, things you're just never going to know. Why did it go from 9-7-1 to a point where the guy standing in the pocket actually had some protection, and if he let the ball go when he should have, right? Maybe the guy might have got maybe a hand on him or something like that, but But if he planted, if he knew where he was supposed to go, he planted and released it. Maybe he's not even hit, right? Why didn't he? Why did he stand there like a deer in headlights until he got sacked? And Dable's at the top of the screen. Rich Eisen was talking about. You know, Rich Eisen talk on the show about this. Dable's going berserk. It's like, what the? So what happened? Who knows? Was he just shell shock? I mean, don't know. I mean, getting hit. And also, in your mind too. Well, if I get hit, one of the last times I got hit, I blew up my ACL. Another time I got hit, I think it was Ginkle. I mean, had the neck injury. So if I get hit, I'm going to get hurt. You know what I mean? And it's not like, like with Eli. Somehow Eli would get hit, but he would bounce up off the ground. He had to have his helmet on sideways, shoulder pads pulled out of his jersey. He's kind of looking around like this to, puts the helmet back on. Some lineman fixes his thing, but he gets back in the huddle. Eli gets hit, and he's okay. Maybe a little dazed or whatever. But keeps on trucking. Why can some guys keep getting hit and other guys, they get hit and they get hurt, but then they start getting maybe shell shocked. So once again, who knows? All right. And I got this other article. It's still absurd. The NFL agent who witnessed Daniel Jones' Giants contract talks drops a stunning insight into how it all happened. So it's basically kind of like the same thing here. The Jones era with the Giants was a forgettable one. They are looking forward to a potential future with Jackson Dart, with Russell Wilson and Jameson Winston as veteran options, as Brian Daboll tries to orchestrate a successful offense. Daniel Jones has since moved forward with his career. He spent some time with the Vikings last season as a backup. Now he's competing for a starting job at quarterback for the Colts. During his time in the Big Apple, Jones inked a massive 4-year contract extension that aged like milk. Simply. Yep. Daniel Jones's contract discussion. In a recent interview with Ari, I don't know what his name is, AJ Stevens, Vice President of Client Strategy with Athletes First, talked about the surprising revelations that developed during Jones's negotiation for his extension in New York. Stevens, as well as others involved, felt that the work put in to convince the team was absurd. He did admit that the process did find the outcome they hoped for, a big payday and a notable commitment for Jones. As Stevens explained, Athletes First CEO Brian Murphy planned to send the Giants a whole history of the quarterback market and where Daniel Jones fits into it. In order to put the plan in action, Stevens spent the next 72 hours building out a 42-page manifesto, I think the Giants called it, that gave a history of the quarterback position since the 2010-ish era, and eventually a proposal. So you had to read all 41 pages. In a decision that has been consistently mocked, matters were only made worse with a corresponding choice by the Giants. With the Jones extension, they chose to look elsewhere at running back position. That meant that they're not bringing back star running back Saquon Barkley in a multi-year contract now. That's another one of the things too. Of course, everybody, once again, hindsight's always 20/20. Always, you got the eyes of an eagle at hindsight. Absolutely. Of course, then you don't bring back Saquon, the Giants at the time only weapon, right? And you basically gave the money to Daniel Jones. And of course, Saquon goes on. He runs for 742,000 yards last season with the Eagles, something he never would have done with the Giants because the Giants don't have that offensive line. The Giants were not lucky because their offensive line got injured. The Eagles were lucky because their offensive line, they had their maybe one guy missed the game, but like Lane Johnson every game. their left tackle, the guy, the 6'8" guy who was a rugby or Australian football player, rugby, whatever it was. I think he missed it. He missed some time, missed a few games. But other than that, he was back for the Super Bowl and all that, right? Giants didn't have that luxury. The Giants had 10 different offensive line configurations. The Eagles didn't have to do that, right? So, yeah. So Saquon was never going to do what he did with the Eagles with the Giants. Saquon went to it was like the perfect storm. He went to the perfect situation for him where the Eagles were at. Right? And once again, the Eagles don't pay their players because they put void years on the end of their contracts. If the Eagles had to actually pay their players without putting void years on, they couldn't afford all their players that they have. So therefore, they may not make the Super Bowl. But since they put void years on like 6, 7, or 8 of their players because they can't afford to pay them what they're supposed to be paying them, the Eagles have a superstar team. They do draft well. You got to give them credit there. But a lot of the superstar players they can't afford. So they have them on the team because they put void years, the Philadelphia void years on the end of the contracts. That's why they're able to have all these fantastic players. That's the only reason why. No. Let's see. The discussions from Stevens isn't one the fans of NFL media often get. A look behind negotiations or the tough parts of contracts always fly under the radar. For the former Giants quarterback, though, he's probably glad he had certain people in his corner. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, hey, once again, it always takes two to tango, right? And hey, you got to give his agents credit. The Giants, didn't sign Daniel Jones. I'm not sure where they were going to turn to. Right? I mean, they had Tyrod Taylor. I mean, they had Tommy Chicken Cutler Parmesan. We had Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor didn't do too bad. Tyrod Taylor would have loved him in the starting quarterback for the Giants. His problem also is he gets injured as well too. But Tyrod Taylor would have done a very good job for the Giants, at least as good as Jones, if not better. And we'd still have Saquon on our team. But it is what it is. The Giants didn't want to go that route and whatever, so it is what it is. After the season's over, Daniel Jones and his contract will be off the books. Wipe our hands from it. The Darren Waller contract will be off the books. Wipe our hands with Darren Waller and his rap career. Then we can move forward. And hopefully we have, keep your fingers crossed with Jackson Dart because we don't want to be in Never Land again for another, 2, 3, 4 years. Is Dart the quarterback? He had a good game. Yeah, that good game. But then he had a bad game. And then, that other game is really bad. But then the 3 weeks before that, I mean, he had some touchdown passes. I don't know. Is he good? We going to keep him? Should we let him go? Should we sign the guy? I mean, hopefully we won't go through that. Hopefully we got Jackson Dart, and hopefully he'll be our guy going forward. So, right. We've been through enough bad over the past, since 2012. We've had a lot of bad. So hopefully somewhere along we'll start getting on the up and up.